called Mulagoli, a resident in Nyeri County. I've got services, fast delivery of services. Today I've got my clearance from EACC. I've also got my good conduct in less than 30 minutes. So before I could have walked to Nalombi, used my day, and maybe I will not even get all the certificates I required. So I can thank the President of the Republic of Kenya for this initiative of Huduma Kenya. We have got services, free delivery of services, 2 minutes, one is gone, and I recommend him. This is the service we want.
Everybody just arrives in our townships and rural areas and set up businesses without licenses and permits. We are going to just arrives in our townships and rural areas and set up businesses without licenses and permits. We are going to bring this to an end. And those who are operating illegally, wherever they come from, must now know.
A warning shot fired by number one.
Our brothers, black brothers in South Africa, are chasing us, calling us a foreigner in our continent. And they're vandalizing our shops, what we have suffered for. Breaking our shops, killing our brothers, burning our shops, stealing our things. And police are not doing anything. Police are holding their hand, watching them killing us, burning our shops. And the government is not saying anything. We're all disappointed and we're very sad that in our continent, they're calling us foreigners, chasing us. So what do we want government to do? Government must interfere before this is going to escalate, because everybody is very sad. Like today, our shop are closed from morning till now. We also pay taxes, support our kids, pay rent.
We are not happy about this mass demonstration. One of the Indians is killed, of which is the permanent citizens in our country.
South African woke up and said that foreigners must go. I keep asking myself, foreigners, black people must leave Africa. What kind of thing is that? Is it what Nelson Mandela worked for? Is it what all the activists worked for?
Taking our women away, now they're making us run in the streets. Yeah. We want to shire them. Everyone, not let this happen. We'll do something about this.
Which wives? My wife is a Nigerian. So what type of taking your wives? Talking about jobs, I got company, I got shops, and 10 South Africans are working for me. So they should be very, very happy that I'm here. So and we have to, please, both the governments, both all the African countries must come together, join hands, and allow peace to reign. Thank you.
We are also looking not happy about what is happening in our country. So please, government, consider our views. We want to know what is democracy.
You have to fight more police to stop them. That's this case. You're not stopping because they are calling us. Never. You're not stopping. I can't fight anybody. If they want fire, they must come to fight before you stop like that. The white man is taking on. The white man can't fight them. Why?
We want government to do something about it. We don't want people to do business while they are not permitted. They are coming with drugs. They got a bad influence.
Before we came here, way back in the days, there's drug in South Africa.
That means they must do something, like they must try to find something to make them right, and maybe they must just try to find a transport and move them to their homes, not like to hit them and kill them. It's not right at all.
brothers, black brothers in South Africa.
Stop your self-hatred. Stop attacking our brothers from Africa, our sisters from Africa. We are one thing. You say batata umsebenzi. Even if we expel them tomorrow, you will still not get a job. There are no jobs in South Africa because whites are refusing to invest money in South Africa. They've got too many savings in the bank. They've got trillions in the bank. They are refusing to take it out and build industries. There is no Nigerian who stole an industry and hired Nigerians only. There is no Zimbabwean who's got a farm in Knysna or Stellenbosch who hired Zimbabweans. It is your white people who hire Zimbabweans, pay them low so that you can fight amongst yourself as Africans. See them for what they are. Bias Luis Alababantu, they are causing divisions amongst Africa. Don't glorify these borders. Uti, hey, there is Zimbabwe, there is Nigeria. These borders were never here. These borders were imposed on us by white people who wanted to divide Africa and do what they wanted to do with this continent of Africa. I am ashamed today to call myself a South African. The image that are coming out of Durban make me to be ashamed. You are beating blacks. You are slaughtering Africans. I've never seen you doing that to a Chinese. I've never seen you doing that to a white person who doesn't have papers. I've never seen you do that to an Indian without papers. But once they say it's an African, because you hate yourself, because white people taught you to hate yourself, you kill other Africans. Stop that nonsense. It ends today. We must unite as Africans. Stop your self-hatred. Stop.
I will begin with a statement, a short statement on the topic. 1. Cliffhanger politics occurs when the left hits the right hits the center hits the north hits the south. The state of confusion over taxation in this Republic of Kenya leaves a lot to be desired. From 2013, the MPs that were in Parliament at that time passed a budget, recommended that budget, and said the 16% levy would come into effect in 2013. But later on, they decided to push the date to 2018. President Uhuru Kenyatta took over a government that had obligations, both local and international. In international obligations, he had to continue to service the date that the government of President Kibaki had. Of course, with the continuation of assembling and making sure that the Constitution of 2010 works effectively, the president had to embark on a budget that could see cementing the rule of law through constitutionalism, making sure that all the institutions of the world, that the world wants, are working and working in Kenya. It is therefore very important to understand the root causes of the current taxation saga that continues to haunt and create cliffhanger politics into this nation. The 11th Parliament passed the budget. The 12th Parliament today found the budget and the tax levy had already been passed. For all these years, from 2013 to 2018, there are several oversight committees in Parliament, committees of finance, committees of budget, committees of all legal and other apparatus that work up in a democracy. Why did they look at this as very important taxation that had been shelved by the Minister of Finance? It is therefore very prudent and very important for the people of this country to understand, and the rest of the world to understand, that the international obligations and the factors that run around international agencies that lend in money, that support our programs in Africa, they come with conditions that you must fulfill before the sustenance of such grants or loans or whatever help they are giving to the nations in Africa. It is very important, therefore, to learn that behind all this, there is what we call cliffhanger politics. The politics that seeks to victimize. The politics that seeks to push a person to the wall. The politics that seeks to cause a state of despondence where the masses could turn against the president of republic of any country in Africa. These factors could be coming from both internal and external forces that are hidden, that would like to collapse the systems and replace the systems with their own likings. It is therefore very important for the people of Africa to watch out for such maneuvers, such Machiavellian systems of operation. Machiavellian in the sense that they planted the story, they orchestrate the script, they write the script, they tell, they engineer, they sit down and discuss the formula on how to weaken a government. One of the things disturbing Machiavellian politicians or cliffhanger politicians is what is it that it was in the handshake. It is this handshake that has pained even those who were moderate, who turn around to become hardliners. It is this handshake, the question of redemption, seeking redemption, that people are querying. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is inside it? The government therefore should move fast to make sure that they put it out in the 9-point program that we see, so that it is among the people that the terms of reference of all this is thrown to the people to make their own judgment. The second reason why cliffhanger politics works, or why people create cliffhanger politics, is to confuse the main item. What is the main item of Kenyans today? The main item of Kenyans is to fight corruption. Since President Uhuru Kenyatta declared that he will fight corruption through a lifestyle audit, there has been a sense of cliffhanger politics, direction of cliffhanging, of taking us to almost falling and then coming back. These are called diversionary tactics in political science. Tactics that take your enemy or your friend, or even tactics that can take a country into a bad direction, keep it there, bring it back, manipulate it, so that the main issue of corruption is not discussed. These are cardinal points that people must look at when you are fixing your mind on the current political, economic, social mechanisms that are operating on the state of Republic of Kenya. Like in Zimbabwe today, The cliffhanger politics has entered. The same style of cliffhanger politics of Machiavellian. Boycott, don't come in later. Oppose, don't oppose, come in later. That is the way cliffhanger politics works. Any student of political science will know that those who seek to grab power through dubious means to cause despondency first go by causing a state of despondency by making sure that the masses hate the leadership. President Uhuru Kenyatta, as a shepherd, must strike the shepherd. As the owner of the sheep, must strike the shepherd once for all. Strike the shepherd, the sheep will scatter.
Indeed, it is a very good morning to you, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching us at this day. It is the 3rd of April 2019, and this is Good Morning Africa, coming to you all the way from the Kenya's capital in Nairobi, East Africa. I am Miriam Ogutu, and thank you so much for joining me this morning. And just in a short bit, Dr. David Matanga will be joining me. He has a presentation that he would like to make after this, and so I will just quickly take you through what's making headlines in Africa this morning. And of course, some headlines in the Kenyan newspapers. President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday named a tribunal to probe Justice Ojwang, one of the chief justices in the Kenyan High Supreme Court. So that is something that I believe Dr. David Matanga would want to really give an insight in depth to that. And also, a very famous lawyer here in Kenya has been, engulfed in death of his son, and so yesterday he was buried, and the lawyer is set to go to court today. So that is just what is making headlines in some of Kenya's newspapers. And of course, yesterday President Uhuru Kenyatta launched the Huduma number. It's called the National Integrated Management System that will help just have all Kenyans' data at one place, and that will bring efficiency in especially when it comes to accessing some of these services in government places and also across elsewhere. And so that is that, and Dr. Matanga will come to look into that. But right now, I could just delve into what's making headlines across some countries in Africa. And we start with Algeria, where Algeria's state news agency APS has said late Tuesday that the embattled President Abdelaziz Bouteflika sent his resignation to the Constitutional Council. The ailing 82-year-old leader stood down shortly after the army chief of staff demanded immediate action to remove him from office following weeks of mass protest against his rule. And in Cameroon, Cameroon's opposition leader Maurice Kamto, who faces several charges including hostility against the homeland and offense against the President of the Republic of Cameroon, has asked to be tried in an open court. Mr. Kamto was in court on Tuesday to ask for bail, but when the judge insisted that the hearing take place in his chambers, he walked out. I'm still in Cameroon. The former Minister of Finance, Lazare Esime Menye, has been sentenced for life by the Special Criminal Court in Yaoundé for embezzling state funds. The court found Lazare Esime Menye guilty of embezzling state funds to the tune of 2.7 billion francs. We move to Mozambique, where the United Nations Children's Agency UNICEF says nearly 900,000 doses of cholera vaccine have arrived in the Mozambican port city of Beira to help contain an outbreak of the waterborne disease that emerged in the wake of Cyclone Idai. There are more than 1,000 confirmed cholera cases, most of which are in Beira. One person has died from the disease so far. And in Tanzania, civil society groups have warned that a deterioration in basic rights in Tanzania could undermine peace in the country, explaining they wanted to raise a red flag over the direction President John Magufuli's government is taking. The coalition, the Civil Society Organizations Directors Forum, made up of 65 influential rights groups from across the East African nation, called on the government and security forces to protect fundamental human rights. And in Tunisia, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres met with Tunisian President Beji Said Essebsi at the Presidential Palace in Tunis following the Arab League summit. During the meeting, the leaders discussed cooperation between Tunisia and United Nations organizations and the latest development of political solutions in Libya. And we go to Sierra Leone, where Finance Minister says over $1 billion of state funds cannot be accounted for following a technical audit into government transactions over a 3-year period. Now, local media reports that Minister Jacob Jusu Safa used the term stolen for the unaccounted funds siphoned between 2015 and 2018. The audit looked into the affairs of 11 state-run entities, that including the National Telecoms Outfit and the Ministry of Works and Public Assets. We move to Mali, where the French Barkhane force is building a new base in Gozi, a crossroad in central Mali and former United Nations mission base. It is a strategic base that will allow French soldiers to gain a foothold in the arid Guma area. And we go to Ethiopia, where 1 year after taking oath as Ethiopia's Prime Minister on April 2nd, Abiy Ahmed is working towards delivering a free, fair and credible elections in 2020, which he hopes will be the climax of the democratic reforms he has championed for. Abiy, who took office as the government struggled to contain protest that had lasted over 2 years, has steadily implemented a raft of reforms, including reaching out to the opposition in a bid to build trust and stabilize the country. And we go to Amazonia, where the government of Cameroon has hit back at Human Rights Watch for its recent report on the situation in the southwest regions of the country. During its world report published last week, Human Rights Watch accused the Cameroonian government and security forces of serious human rights violations against civilians in the Amazonia region. The international NGO also accused security forces of torture and burning of homes of civilians, accusations that were dismissed by Cameroon's Minister of Communication, René Emmanuel Sadi, on Tuesday during a press briefing in Yaoundé. We end with Uganda, where the People's Democratic Party leader, PDP, Dr. Abed Bonika, is now accusing the former presidential candidate and Uganda's opposition leader, Kizza Besigye, of sabotaging opposition's plan to take power. Bonika, who is part of the Democratic Party bloc, intimated that Besigye always keep coming with issues when the opposition proposes affronting a single candidate to challenge President Yoweri Museveni. And some business news from the continent. And in Togo, almost all 97 reforms projected in relation to the country's public finances have been carried out or are underway. This was revealed on Monday during a session to review the country's reforms. This represents a completion rate of 90.7%, which is a clear improvement compared to the previous year, where it stood at 83%, according to the official. Besides assessing progress made, these reforms initiated in 2018, the review session aims at identifying Togo's strengths and weaknesses relating to public finances and finding new reforms to implement in 2019-2021 calendar. And it is good news in Africa, as Gambia's parliament on Tuesday approved the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, famously known as AFCFTA, becoming the 22nd nation to do so, and effectively meeting the minimum threshold for the agreement to come into force. The AFCFTA, which was enacted last year, seeks to create the largest trade zone in the world, increase intra-African trade by 52% by the year 2022, and remove tariffs on 90% of goods. So I think that will be very good in encouraging free movement and trade across African nations, and Gambia just did that for the continent. They required a minimum of 22 nations to sign into that ratification, and Gambia just gave us that gift. So thank you so much. That is the Africa news report this morning, and good morning to you wherever you're joining us from, and that is the latest from the continent. So just a quick go through, and of course it was inevitable for President Abdelaziz Bouteflika of Algeria to step down. I still wonder what he was still doing in office, and I think he must have heeded the army chief call, who said, you know what, you need to be out of office. And so yesterday there were reports by the news agency, the state news agency in Algeria, that reported that, of course, the embattled President Abdelaziz Bouteflika has finally, tendered his resignation to the Constitutional Council. So that is a story that is still developing, and I'm sure maybe there's some other information that has come up a few minutes ago. So we will keep updating you as we receive the latest from this developing story from Algeria. But that is that President Abdelaziz Bouteflika finally tenders his resignation, and this is according to a state news agency in Algeria. So that is, I guess, good news for Algerians. And of course, that was met with a lot of jubilation and celebrations in the streets of Algiers, and indeed across the whole of Algeria. Not very nice, that is not something you want to see after 20 years in power, and people are happy for you to be out. And I think this is something we were talking about here yesterday when we were discussing why some Africa leaders get to stay beyond their welcome in leadership and in power. 20 years, people are tired of you, When you leave and people are still crying, I think that is not very nice. And so Algerians are very happy a lot this morning after their president resigned. And so I guess that is very good news from that part of Africa. And, stability now will come. And we go to Cameroon, where the opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, he's going through some a trial in Yaoundé, and he refused yesterday to be tried in private, So that is that. He refused to be tried in the private chambers by the judge, and he said if he wants to be tried, then he wants it to be made public, so that the public is able to follow the proceedings of his trial. And so I think when the judge refused to give him that, he just walked out of the judge's private chambers, and that is also still a developing story, and we will give you the latest as we continue to receive that. And of course, there have been questions of democracy and human rights abuse in Tanzania. Human rights organizations are now raising issues by the leadership of President Pombe Magufuli, and they're saying a lot of measures is bringing into place is curtailing, some fundamental human rights. So that is also some news that we'll be following for you. So I'll just take a very short break, and then Dr. David Matanga will be coming in and taking over the rest of the show. And of course, he'll be looking at a very pertinent question, and I think he asks here a lot of times, but he'll seek to answer that. Has Africa lost its social structures? Has it collapsed? And if so, what is the problem, and what can be done to rectify that? And hopefully we can be better human beings in this continent. So thank you so much. I'll take a short break, and Dr. Matanga will be meeting you on the other side of the break. I am Miriam Magutu. Good morning.
I'm Paul Mulagoli, a resident in Nyeri County. I've got services, fast delivery of services. Today I've got my clearance from EACC I've also got my good conduct in less than 30 minutes. So before I could have walked to Nalombi, used my day, and maybe I will not even get all the certificates I required. So I can thank the President of the Republic of Kenya for this initiative of Huduma Kenya. We have got services, free delivery of services, 2 minutes, one is gone, and I recommend him. This is the service we want.
Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Punchline Africa TV, broadcasting all the way from the Republic of Kenya, Nairobi, and elsewhere in London. Those in London, good morning. Those going to work this morning in the trains at the Heathrow Airport, Gatwick, good morning. Our headquarters, thank you very much. Good morning elsewhere in Africa, in Berlin, our television station, a satellite system that picks up in Berlin. Good morning. We are on air. Africa will never reverse. Neither will I reverse. It is impossible. Good morning, Kenyans, wherever you are watching me live from Republic of Kenya. The weather is fantastic. No problem. Security intact. No problem. Tourists come as many as you can. There is nothing wrong in us in Africa entertaining our people, bringing our people. We call upon you to come. Viewers, my colleague Miriam Ogutu brought you the Africa news. Headlines making news. Making headlines in Africa. I am now going into the details. But first, Kenya is given priority. And I will discuss Kenya first. Viewers, a lot has been said, and I want to make it cement the fact. I support President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, the government of the Jubilee, the government of the people of Kenya, the Jubilee people, and all the people involved in one, making sure that corruption goes down. That is a fact. We have no regrets for having taken a stand against corruption in the judiciary, corruption against all the people that we have used and talked about on this television station. That will not come from us. If you think that we have talked about you wrongly and you are not corrupt, clean yourself with the DCI, which is Director of Criminal Investigations. Tell them you are not. 2, I want to take this opportunity to tell the world that there is no community that can be organized when it has not organized itself. There is no country that can call itself organized when it hasn't organized itself in terms of knowing its data is what they want to do. Where do they go from here? I want to thank President Uhuru Kenyatta for reaffirming that yesterday. Huduma number is like a social security number in the United States. Part of why United States has actually accounts for every citizen, everybody in the world, delivers the services to the people, makes it easier. Part of what works is the insurance number in the United Kingdom, where some of us have lived for 34 years. It can tell you where you are. It can say what you are doing. And then it can actually help you also to be given services by the government. The healthcare, the education, employment, non-employment benefits, social benefits, economic participation, meetings where you are needed as a country, as citizen. Huduma number is the best thing that Kenya can do to remove what we call challenges, structural challenges and obstacles that Kenya has had, and a coordinated movement of in different things from different directions. That's what we call the basis of why we need a centralized number that can help you to access government institutions, to access government facilities, to access services, to access also to be able to use, to integrate with one another, remove ethnicity. We are all Kenyans. Tanzanians have one ID. Ugandans have one ID. They are doing the same. In Uganda now, every Ugandan has an ID, which is finally a data bank that keeps all you can travel with it on a plane, and that will be done once there is a chip down, it will be done. The chip is inside. It will say you are Ugandan, and that is you are coming to this place, what you want to do. This is something that Kenyans must take up and never politicize it, never talk about it negatively. It's sad that in the 21st century, we still want to behave like old stone-aged people who think about many gods and the gods of the people, many gods that we worship, talk about satanic things. No! This Huduma number will give this country the first impact, the opening of an organized society. It will remove obstacles, challenges. Remember Kenya, what kills Kenya, and I still maintain, there were 4 things that killed Kenya from 2013 or from 2010. After the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, Kenya had 4 things that were killing it. 1, structure and challenges and obstacles. Too many institutions duplicated. Every institution has its own policy. Police could not coordinate with the intelligence to pass on information to another department. The army could not coordinate with other institutions of security. A Minister of Education had several institutions, structures that become a problem. National hospitals in Nairobi, Kenyatta National Hospitals died or could die because of structural systems that prevented it from doing things, yet there were resources to do it. Structural obstacles can kill a country. Structural obstacles can create a war, can bring chaos. Huduma card will finish that. People will get united. I'm a Kenyan. Feel proud with the card as a Kenyan. You feel proud. Stand firm. Produce one document. You don't walk with a bulging trouser with several documents. Go back to the car. That is something that Kenyans should be happy about. The second thing that had entered Kenya is the lack of redemption strategy. Redemption strategy killed Kenya until 30th of March, until 9th of March, when Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta moved one step forward towards my theory. Redemption strategy. This is Matanga. I've been saying it. I said it. People called me names and named me. Redemption strategy. Some of them did not know what it meant. But I was meaning that. Healing, truth, accountability, restitution, reparations, reconciliation, and above all, truth-telling. It will heal this country. This country is the Switzerland of Africa. This country gives you the hope of being an African. This country is our country. It's ours in Africa. We view it with great credibility. Viewers, the situation that you see today in Kenya is that situation, a redemption strategy, that the building of bridges initiative is simply a redemption strategy. Let's not confuse people too much. Let's explain in a nutshell. You're not building bridges in air. We are building bridges among people. Let people understand that. And I'm talking with wisdom. Having lived 6 decades on this planet, I talk with wisdom. And I will not talk a lie to mislead. A redemption strategy is that healing is the end factor. That after healing this nation, we coupled with removal of obstacles, challenges, structures that have made Kenya not move. One of them, you have now finished. You are coming to an end of the process. Kenya becomes a healed country. You pull out your card, I'm a Kenyan. You put it in the service, police will know you are the one who was not there and who was there. You want any services, the banker will know. I am the one, not the other one. These things happen in countries that have got a social structure. The social contract, when we come in the phase 2, at the top of the hour, I think, which we have not reached yet, 10 minutes to the top of the hour. For those in Berlin, my headquarters, and watching worldwide on channel 003 and channel 002 of Nilesat in conjunction with South Cameroon Broadcasting Corporation, Punchline Africa TV. We are together there. You can watch us anywhere. No bills to pay. Just tune that decoder. Looking at this, look at Kenya today. It's a model of a handshake that has moved miles. You can't reverse it. Some of us are modifying it. I'm on 69 pages of a modification of a new system of governance in Africa. Does Africa need elections? Do we understand elections? Ourselves Africans, does Paul Obiya understand what an election is? Does Bouteflika understand what an election is? Does Buhari understand what an election is? Tell me, Africans, tell me, or does Bouteflika understand elections? Does Paul Obiya understand elections? Do they know what it means to be in an election? Does our opposition in Africa understand elections? That there is a loser and a winner. Therefore, I'm modeling this. I just want to tell President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga that thank you very much for giving me, as a political scientist who read political science as my subject to the highest level. I'm taking this away from you. This is my theory. It's going to be my theory in Africa. I will convince very many Africans here that there is no need of us misinterpreting the Plateau Republic. There is no need of us misinterpreting the Socrates Republic. When we can't understand the Socrates, when we can't understand the Plateau Republic, there is no need. There is nowhere in the Plateau Republic where it was said you should hold elections 4 years, every 5 years. It's not there. Can't we as Africans, before the coming of people who told us about elections, can't we now look at ourselves? Were we not governing ourselves? Were we not holding together? Were we not eating together? Were we not moving together? Does China have elections? Does China have elections? You Africans tell me today, you borrow money from China, but China has no elections. China has no MPs, no members of parliament taking money, even adding, wanting more. China has no elections, but we borrow money from China. Isn't China stable? I want anybody to tell me China is not stable. Tell me that China is not stable. Does it hold elections every 5 years? The fragmentation of a state in Africa begins from the time you say you want to hold an election. The state starts fragmenting. The state starts taking information. I want to take this opportunity to thank the ANC, the African National Congress, for having taken one step forward to explain the current situation in South Africa. The statement have circulated all over the whole world from ANC, the stand that they took, regardless of the manipulation that has come all over from all corners. I warned the ANC 5 years ago when I was in a solidarity meeting with President Zuma in Pretoria. I told them that one day the NGOs that surround South Africa will turn to eat you. There are people in South Africa who thought I was a madman from Uganda. As usual, Africans listen to white professors, but they wouldn't like to listen to a black professor or a black doctor who has read the same books and even maybe better. But here we are. I want to take the opportunity to thank the African National Congress for clarifying the situation that had gone around about the killings, and we would like you to take a firm stand, because forces of darker forces that are against liberation parties would like to destroy the liberation parties of Africa. Forces that have always been against Africa. They work with our fellow Africans to destroy. They have tried to destroy ZANU-PF across Limpopo, north of Limpopo. They tried, they failed. You better be careful, ANC. Stand firm. Make sure that such things don't happen again. Back to the drawing board. 4 things. 3 I've mentioned. The other thing, eating Kenya. As we come to the top of the hour, the other thing, eating Kenya, is the type of ethnicity which could be killed and finished when we start measures like Huduma numbers. Huduma number unifies you with another Kenyan. Both of you, all of you, wherever you are traveling in a train, in a bus, you all have the same blood embedded in those numbers. Ethnicity in Kenya has destroyed the unity of purpose. I want to thank again President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga for the tenacity and the steadfastness they have taken to make sure that above the nation is above everybody. Kenya comes first. You took the first step to shake hands. I've told you already, you have given me a theory. I've run away with it. In fact, I don't need anything from you. I've now got what I want. And that will live on my grave. That there is a policy that will change Africa. As a political scientist, I am going to use this. My policy in Africa will work. You know why? All countries that have taken elections in Africa, tell me, was there an election? Was there an election in Nigeria? Was there an election in Nigeria? 84 million people in Nigeria stood up for elections. They registered for elections. 28 million only voted, or votes were stuffed. Boxes were stuffed in River State, Enugu, in all these places. Kano. Was that an election? No. Does Africa need elections? Today, Nigeria is divided between Obasanjo and Buhari. It's not Atiku. The two generals have a beef to finish. And the Nigerians should watch out that no army man slips between the two and takes over and returns us to a military junta. Buhari has performed so badly that any African looking at the results coming from Nigerian election would weep until God comes to help him. Those were not elections. Let's go to Comoros. Were those elections? Those were not. I'm now defending Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta handshake system, which I have taken away. I've told you, you took away my redemption. I've taken away the system of the handshake. I'm going to form it into a policy. I've told you I have 49 pages I've written. I want Africa to understand me. That the best way to live in Africa harmoniously is not periodically cause dead bodies every 5 years. There is no election in Africa Every time you hear of elections, you tell the mortuary attendant to extend the space. Every time you hear of elections, we try to buy pangas, machete, arrows to kill each other. Do we need them? China that gives us the money does not hold elections, Jermaine. Listen to me, Africans. China holds one meeting in a year. No MPs is lending us money which we are eating badly here. We are again eating China money badly. Yet they have what we call a social contract. I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Today is my day to talk. I want to show you that despite the difficulties that I undergo, I went to school and I have the tools of analysis. Nobody can beat me on that. Even if you close my eyes, I'll beat you on that. Redemption is the best way for Africa. Those who oppose the redemption strategy, the building of bridges in Kenya, initiative, the handshake system, are either fascists or power-hungry or corrupt or worse, murderers. It must be sounded very clearly. Everywhere in Africa where you see conflict, why was the conflict in South Sudan? Elections. Riaka wanted reforms. Riaka wanted to be a leader. Salva Kiir said no. They brought out the guns and killed each other. How many Sudanese have been killed? South Sudanese. Over 384,000 Sudanese are dead because people want power and elections. Do we need it in Africa? Ethnicity is rife. Do we need elections? Do we understand? Look at this simple thing of Huduma Center. The Huduma Center, Huduma number in Kenya was simple. Kenya Africans will take long to understand. Judges that also stopped near schools in the United States and never even qualified to be part of the judiciary of Kenya, which is corrupt, make a ruling and say reservations. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Is this Africa? Is this Africa where we cast? Look at Democratic Republic of Congo. It has been in turmoil simply because people don't realize. They think of election first. Election has become a commercial basis, vehicle of dismembering people of Africa. It's a commercial venture. It's not a governance venture. It's a commercial venture. In Uganda last year, a by-election killed very many people. Very many people. In 2018, in Arua, people were killed. Some started stoning Museveni's car. Museveni's people reiterated, do you need elections? Why do you create dead bodies every 5 years or every 4 years? In Cameroon, for example, does Biya need elections? Does Cameroon need elections? Why do you conduct an election where you win by yourself? Mr. Biya, do you know the meaning of an election, Mr. Paul Biya? If you knew the meaning, you not oppress the Amazonians who have just said, we also want to conduct our own affairs without you policing us and without you siphoning the resources from our own region to sell them to that small France that has manipulated, influenced, supplied, equipped regimes in Africa to dismember themselves. Do we need elections? Do we take long to understand? Viewers, when you look at the Kenyan scenario, there comes a time when you tell it as it is. Corruption, corruption, corruption in the judiciary. The Kenyan judiciary is half walking dead, is dead, is dead. Especially the Supreme Court is dead. Dead. Imekufa. It has died. I don't know who wants to resurrect it. I don't know. You cannot put old wine in a new place. Need a new patch on an old patch. It's difficult, Mr. President. The judiciary is zero, is dead. JSC is why are people struggling to change rules in order to enter JSC? Because there is profit and corruption. It brings me to the question then, does Africa need this? Does Kenya need this? Viewers, very key important thing that links up with the Huduma number that every African should listen to is the social contract. And when you listen to my second part of the social contract, when I'm sat down, you are going to enjoy. Get your pen, paper, your ears, tune on. Listen to why Africa has collapsed. Why after independence 66 years ago, the first nation is on the Ghana, is on the Rwanda, is on the Ethiopia, seem to have a semblance of social contract working. It's South Africa, because they took over from apartheid regime, social contract available but breaking. It's going. We want to look at that in the second part at the top of the hour. It's 4 minutes past the top of the hour in Berlin. It is 4 minutes past 10 o'clock in Berlin, our satellite headquarters. Thank you very much for listening to us. We are coming back after a short break. And those in London, those in Washington, those in all over the whole world, in South Africa, Johannesburg, Pretoria, South African officials, watch this. You allowed too many NGOs. ANC, you must work. I told you that George Soros will infiltrate you and create chaos. Look at the number of NGOs that have surrounded you in South Africa. The ones causing trouble in Zimbabwe. The one causing trouble in Kenya. The one causing trouble in Uganda. Several countries in Africa are surrounded by regime change NGOs because we lack a social structure to defend ourselves. Keep watching, get a pen, sit down, enjoy the next part of the show. Thank you. Let's take a break.
Our brothers, black brothers in South Africa are chasing us, calling us a foreigner in our continent. And they're vandalizing our shops, what we have suffered for. Breaking our shops, killing our brothers, burning our shops, stealing our things. And police are not doing anything. Police are holding their hand, watching them killing us, burning our shops. And the government is not saying anything. We're all disappointed and we're very sad that in our continent, they're calling us foreigners, chasing us. So what do we want government to do? Government must interfere before this thing is going to escalate, because everybody is very sad. Like today, our shop are closed from morning till now. We also pay taxes, support our kids, pay rent.
We are not happy about this mass demonstration. One of the Indians is killed, of which is the permanent citizens in our country.
South African woke up and said that foreigners must go. I keep asking myself,
I'm Paul Mulagoli, a resident in Nyeri County. I've got services, fast delivery of services. Today I've got my clearance from EACC. I've also got my good conduct in less than 30 minutes. So before I could have walked to Nalombi, used my day, and maybe I will not even get all the certificates I required. So I can thank the President of the Republic of Kenya for this initiative of Huduma Kenya. We have got services, free delivery of services, 2 minutes, one is gone, and I recommend him. This is the service we want.
Please, give me a break. Do you want to change a decision of the court, or what is it you want to do?
No, Judge, you know, you are a 3-star general.
Thank you very much, viewers. Welcome back to Punchline Africa TV broadcasting. The clip going on there shows the type of Kenya that we have, the corruption, the scandals, what is taking place. Judicial Service Cartel, Wakora Republic. This is not a Judicial Service Commission that we wanted. This is more or less like a Judicial Service corruption, a scandal, a cartel, where people are fighting to go and work. Viewers, thank you very much. The headlines in Kenya puzzle me. Newspapers in Kenya play a vital role in dismembering states. A state in Kenya is under siege. A siege that we see people not talking the truth. Headline like this one, puzzle as Ruto skips key state function. The president, the deputy president was with the visiting Cuban vice prime minister or minister in charge of cabinet, talking about how our doctors can live in Cuba, how the Cuban doctors, medicine, health, economy, A headline of this nature does not inspire Africa. Kenyans wait for Uhuru last bullet. If last bullet is not there, when we are waiting, all of us, we shall look at that today in the People's Court this afternoon, what the president can deliver tomorrow and what he can say tomorrow. Cabinet in panic over Uhuru Nation address. There is no need of panic. The tsunami is on the way and it will happen. We'll do that in the afternoon. Puzzle as Ruto skips Huduma number launch. The same story is carried on the People's Daily, which is a free paper and also associated with K24 of the same deputy president, commercial entities. Thank you very much, viewers. In my first part, the question that comes and that begs answers is, are there social structures in Africa? Have the social structures in Africa collapsed? Does Africa have a social contract? How many countries in Africa have social contracts? Why is it that we cannot hold the same principles? We are not accountable. The morals have collapsed. Students work upside down. Students steal exams. What has happened to Africa? If you look at China, for example, look at Singapore, for example, where corruption is completely zero tolerance. Nobody wants to hear the word in the Singapore city. Nobody would like to hear that you are exchanging money for the services, or you are paying for the services, that you should get them free. How many countries in Africa have that type of social contracts? This afternoon, I will examine how many of these countries in Africa have the social contract. Let me begin with Kenya. After independence, the white man surrendered us the flag. He surrendered the flag to the white, not the white people, but to us black people. There was a semblance of a social contract where your letter would be posted in the post office, where you would pay your services, your bills in the post office, where your letter with money can reach another friend or a school of your child. He opens it and sees it and says, Dad, I've received the 20 shillings. Does that social contract today in Africa exist? Does it exist in Kenya? How many people on retirement benefit are able to get their checks when they have not been asked to pay extra money in order to take a check? When you are retired, it means you are already retired. You don't have any more earning except the check that you are supposed to collect from the benefit agency. That social contract, social network in Africa is not there. Retired people are told to pay extra money in countries in Africa in order to get the services. So our social contract in Africa has collapsed, or in Kenya has collapsed. The widespread corruption, active and passive bribery, long-term economic retardation, and fraud in public procurement, which is very rampant, has destroyed the social contract, the social fabric of this nation. Corruption, abuse of office, bribing of foreign public officials, criminalizing everybody, the laxity of implementation of government directives, has created what we see in Kenya today. The announcement that there should be a social contract, that they go and do a Huduma number, one number, social security number, a number that will identify you, was met with quite a lot of mixed feelings. And the people would like to play politics on it. Some people passively telling people not to go and register. Is this the Africa that we want? Is there a social order in Africa? Has our social order in Kenya collapsed? I leave those questions to Africans in Kenya to answer. South Africa. In South Africa, after it attained independence from apartheid regime, the release of Mandela from prison, the fight that most of us African countries sustained against occupation of a white minority regimes of apartheid nature in South Africa, bore the fruits that brought out Nelson Mandela from prison and became a leader of a rainbow country. Today, the same people whom we wrestled for democracy against, we stood against them, we got that democracy. The same people are fighting back. The darker forces in South Africa of NGOs supported by George Soros pumped in money, surrounded a South African ANC to weaken ANC institutions of credibility, of Pan-Africanism, of patriotism, to destroy that same dream of Nelson Mandela. We look at this xenophobia as a well-orchestrated measure from external forces that are bent to make sure that they pacify all national liberation movements on the continent of Africa. You better be careful. Those in South Africa, ANC, should see what has happened to Mugabe across Limpopo. ZANU-PF, the fight by Americans against ZANU-PF, putting sanctions on ZANU-PF, is not because they want to punish Mnangagwa, but because they want to pacify the party called ZANU-PF. They don't want ZANU-PF, they don't want Frelimo, they don't want ANC, they don't want MPLA, they don't want SWAPO, they don't want all revolutionary parties that have existed in Africa to exist. That's the pattern of international American hegemony, which is very clear, well stipulated in the CIA documents. External usage of NGOs, a doctrine that was invented by Obama, to use NGOs to take over governments, to overthrow governments, to create regime change through uprising, to create uprising in countries where they can't take the army. I hope South Africans are watching this, that a country where you don't take the army to liberate those people, you can use local and international NGOs like Vanguard Africa, Open Society Foundation of George Soros, which is headquartered in South Africa, Johannesburg, pays out money to destabilize the same government of South Africa. They have done it elsewhere. They will do it in South Africa if they have a chance to do it. The South African government must look at all those NGOs registered. Civic education is welcome. But civic education at the expense of chaos is not a need for you to overlook. It is very important that last week, why should another black man wake up to kill another black person? There must be an instigating factor. What are the factors that are instigating? Who is paying these black people to come and kill? I don't think ANC can pay black people to go and kill another black person. No. South African intelligence systems, the security agencies, must look at this at length, at depth, in depth, and find out payments are coming from external forces that want to lynch, to finish the ANC, bring it to its noise. Cameroon. The situation in Cameroon worries me every day when I sit and talk over this television station. The government of Cameroon is not a government. From the explanation I've told you, Paul Biya does not know an election at all. He doesn't know that there's an election. He has never seen an election at all. Because he elects himself every time, every day, every year. He wanted the 7th term of office. So in Cameroon, what has happened? The external forces through the French hegemony have usurped all the powers. Biya is a surrogate of an external force. He works for an external force, not the Cameroonians. And time has come for this type of people to be called upon, whether you're a French Cameroonian or an English-speaking Cameroonian, to wake up, rise up, remove such leaders who stick in power even when they are dying. When you look at the story of Bouteflika in Algeria, you feel like vomiting. Bouteflika is on a wheelchair, but still wants to run a government on a wheelchair. That's Africa, where we cast. Social contract in Cameroon is collapsed. There's no social contract. In all this, I will summarize for you where there is a social contract. Why is it that when we see Chinese coming into our streets, we start to quarrel? Chinese eat 1 meal in a day, and they don't eat all the food that we Africans want to lay on table for us to be seen that we are eating. Chinese eat noodles and they go and work for a long time. But Chinese have got what we call a social contract. The social contract of the Chinese can never be changed, never be removed, never be diluted. They eat in the same compound, they eat in the same house, on the same table. Whatever they eat, whether they are eating dogs, snakes, whatever, each country has its delicacy. But they have a social contract. What is the social contract that bonds Chinese? That Chinese were 30 years ago, Chinese could not feed themselves. Today, Chinese feed themselves, they have surplus, and they even give us the money which we steal. We eat the Chinese money, steal it here, misuse it, buy choppers, buy everything, fly, buy more cars, big Range Rovers, because they have a social contract. Until Africa realizes that there is need for social contract, Africa cannot stand. Until Cameroon realizes that the Amazonian people need that freedom. They need the will to talk, to walk free. They need the change. They need a self-state, a state called Amazonia, where there is social contract of students going to school, children going to school, women going to hospital, having internet, having social mechanisms of resolving issues. That's when Africa can call itself Africa. Less than that, the Africa that I see today is an Africa that pains me, anguishes me, and above all, injures me. Every day I go to my bed, I try to read something positive from Africa. I try to read the newspapers across Kenya, across Uganda, my own country. I cry for this Africa. We have no social contract after 56 years or 57 years of independence. We have titles, land titles owned by 6 people. This morning, I woke up to news in Kampala, where a building surrounded by police, a landlord went and blocked and, so that, all this blocked all the buildings around Kampala itself. Why? The same Supreme Court of Uganda gives different court orders to different. So, where is the social order in Africa? People who had paid their rent, people who had sold their plots to do some business were neglected, were outside crying. Police was everywhere. The army was everywhere. Someone came with an army Land Rover and started to lock all these shops. Where is the social contract here? Doesn't the court have the same way of resolving whose land title is this? So that the landlord can be known, the tenants can pay the money to the particular landlord. Such things embarrass Africa. Such things embarrass Africa. In the question of Cameroon, we have cried and asked many people in Africa. Social contract is broken down. Does Africa have social contract? Let's move on to Egypt. I'm choosing this because these are the major powerhouses. One is a powerhouse of conflict called Cameroon. Is a conflict country. There is a country called Cameroon. It's called Beer. It's a beer. The Republic of Beer. I don't know why they are calling it Republic of Cameroon. They should call it Beer, because Beer, since he took over from Ahijo, he has never thought of other people who exist in that country. He only kills them, maims them, tortures them, rapes them. No schools are open, no courts, no dispensary, no roads working. Women are in the bushes, internally displaced refugees. What is this that you call a country? Is this a country? A number of Egyptian political parties supporting the constitutional amendments in Egypt have continued to participate in the referendum and make amendments through conferences and educational seminars across their governances. But is there a social contract in Egypt? Can you lead Egypt without the army? You saw what happened to Hosni Mubarak. Yesterday we talked about why leaders stick in power. If you treat Hosni Mubarak the way he was put in a keg, if he handles the power, he will never leave. Can we do something about the social contract? Some of the leaders fear to go back because what will they have? I've liked the Zambian situation where the first president, Kaunda, KK, still has his cars and it is written the first president, KK, with his convoy. That's an order. That's a social order in Zambia. It could be a poor country. It might not have enough money, but there is a social order that looks after the elderly and the people that respect. Kenya here has got a social order of respecting the old leaders and the former leaders. Tanzania has got that social order because they put Huduma together under Ujamaa. That's why you don't have dead bodies emerging after elections. They only started last week, this last election, where we saw a lot of fighting. But Tanzania has been peacefully voting and going home. No mortuary attendance at the end of the voting. No extension of mortuary space in Africa. Viewers, it is indeed an Africa that needs help. In Egypt, the situation becomes even worse when General Assisi, the current chairman of African Union, says he will rule until 2032. So, is there social order in Egypt? Yes. The social order in Egypt is what has helped Egypt to have a social order is the togetherness. The population of Egypt of about 80 million are found in cities along the bank of River Nile. The rest of Egypt, as it is on the map, is empty. The population is found in Cairo, Aswan, Alexandria, and other towns where Egypt, Suez Canal, and several other towns. So it is easy to pass to have a social contract, to decide on a common factor. That's why Egypt has got a fabric of social togetherness. When they say they are going to the streets, they walk to the streets. When they say they don't want this, they don't want it. When they say they want to do that, they do it. But is it enough for us to learn from this type of arrangement? We see several African heads of state running into African Union, displaying, everybody displays his colors, tries to outsmart the other. But do we have a social contract that can keep our people together? Do we have it? No. I want to take a few minutes, 1 minute, then come back with two countries, Nigeria and Uganda. Let me then finally end up with Zimbabwe. I will give you examples of countries in Africa whose social, contract is plenty and are moving to make sure that it is working. Thank you. Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you very much, viewers, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for watching us. We are talking on a very cardinal subject today, and that subject is the social contract. Has Africa's social structures collapsed? Yes, they have. They have, in the sense that in China, where we go to buy most of the things, they still have structures. Chinese built up structures that can fight corruption, structures that can fight nepotism, structures that can fight economic sabotage, structures. You look at a country like South Africa today, it tells you there is no power. They don't have power. South Africa used to send power to all the states around there. And today when you say company ESCOM is lacking, it has no capacity, you wonder why Africa always talks the way it does. Viewers, it is a catastrophic event that we see some of these things happen the way they are happening. South Africa is a great country. But when you see South Africa saying it doesn't have power or there is power shortage, then you know something has cropped, eaten the money, someone just fails it, or external forces are working to dismember that nation. Let me come to Nigeria. Most Nigerians will agree with me that there were no elections in Nigeria because 54 million people, registered voters, did not vote. What is the remedy here? Nigeria is battling to hold together. The question of Biafra, there's Boko Haram eating one part of Nigeria. Buhari has failed to call in international help to help him. Nigeria continues to go down the trench, and it is going. The events after the elections this year indicate a fluid state, a fragile state, a state that continues to disorganize, dismember, and damage Africa. Nigeria's, in June, the Cameroonian authorities helped to force, Cameroonian authorities unlawfully forced almost 100 Nigerian seekers, asylum seekers back to Nigeria. The coordination of these countries in matters of this nature always bring me to tears. Another country that we want to look at today, whether there is a social structure, I've already talked about Uganda this morning. Has Uganda got a social fabric? No. After the white person left and gave us independence in 1962, of 9th October, I was alive and I saw the fire. We slept at the fire until morning at my county headquarters. My father took me there to witness the change of God. I was already a grown-up person. They left a structure. But this structure here now seems to have collapsed, diluted, corrupted. It is no more. When you have somebody is tapped, telephones are tapped, you are in a foreign country like US, and then you go on talking the way you talk, we have a problem, and Uganda lost its social moral fabric. Zimbabwe, as my last country, President Emerson Mnangagwa and his administration have moved to demonstrate that an African law that seeks to deter military meddling in African politics, as well as block any coup against a sitting government, must also be changed. We have seen the case in Nigeria. It looks like the military comes in to say, hey, what is going on? But Mnangagwa, a civilian president, has worked his way up through all these difficulties of economic hardships as a result of sanctions that were put on Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe suffered this toll of sanctions. For 17 years, they were under siege from sanctions targeted at the economy of Zimbabwe. President Mnangagwa himself won an election that was contested by the opposition party, MDC. But who funds MDC? It's again external forces. So there is no social contract among the people of Zimbabwe. Even if you put MDC, it will have to rely on an external wing to make itself viable. We lost it, and that is what the Africa we have. Viewers, in a nutshell, China lends us money. We use China's money to build infrastructure. But this infrastructure, without social contract, whoever is the road user, whoever is handling the money, must have a social contract in Africa. You cannot borrow money. We build in a road, but you drive upside down. You go on the left instead of the right when you are not in a country that drives from the left. We need social arrangement, a social order that will come. That's why Kenya today has begun its journey of a social arrangement that will make Kenya a great, great country. The Huduma number is the greatest thing that Kenya could ever think of, and don't hesitate to, accredit yourself or register yourself. Have that card, everything will go away. Kenya will remain the island of peace, and that is all for today. Thank you very much. We come back at 3 p.m. with none other than the People's Court. In today's People's Court, I'm going to look mainly at Kenya and see the challenges. What do we expect from the president tomorrow? The corruption in the judiciary, which is no longer judicial service, but judicial cartel service. It is the judicial service cartels that serve Wakora judges. We look at that this afternoon, and we shall begin with that very early, 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Thank you very much, viewers. God bless you. God bless Africa.
we call for a non-violent revolution. We call for a non-violent protest. We call for a non-violent march. This is what we are demonstrating to the world, and we have resisted Mr. Biya's army of occupation in our land, but this is a moment that we must continue to stand firm.
Of this nation.
Along with many other Cameroonians, many of you, as far back as the early 90s, and more frequently lately, I have insisted upon the imperative nature of genuine dialogue. Unfortunately, the government's solution has been cosmetic reforms and repression. Teachers, lawyers who raised legitimate concerns were either arrested or forced into exile. Doctors, important people in our society who asked for genuine dialogue, were met with punitive transfers and humiliation. It is regrettable that the government hasn't learned from the past.
We are ambassadors. We don't need anything again. The only solution to the matter is let the government solve this problem by giving our independent freedom.
We have a territory of our own. We recognize international boundaries. We have a language. We have a culture. We have our own laws. We have everything that is required by international standards to be a people and a nation and a state. The UN must give us this right.
We as a people, we have the right to self-determination, and we are determined to go our separate ways.
The people of the Southern Cameroons have suffered under the brutal regime of the annexationists, La République du Cameroun. We have suffered for 56 years, and we finally decided that enough is enough.
I think dialogue is the main solution, because the use of military has never been a solution to a problem concerning this kind of issues. So the government of Cameroon has to dialogue with the Anglophone regions to come to a compromise and let this problem be solved.
Now, we want to inform the whole world that the Southern Cameroonian prisoners of conscience in the jails of Yaoundé are on the second day of their declared hunger strike. Now, we want the entire world to know, because we are convinced that the regime in Yaoundé will be indifferent until they begin to die. While we encourage our brothers in this process, we also call on Southern Cameroonians to join them in a fasting, so that the whole world may know that we are a determined people.
Self-determination cannot be effective without self-defense. We are opposed to violence. We are opposed to war. But if La République, if the UN should continue to dilly-dally as they are doing, and La République comes now to attack our people, they are forced, they are bound by the law of nature to defend themselves.
Hail this land of glory, we the Amazonians pledge our loyalty.
I will begin with a statement, a short statement on the topic. 1. Cliffhanger politics occurs when the left hits the right hits the center hits the north hits the south. The state of confusion over taxation in this Republic of Kenya leaves a lot to be desired. From 2013, the MPs that were in parliament at that time passed a budget, recommended that budget, and said the 16% levy would come into effect in 2013. But later on, they decided to push the date to 2018. President Uhuru Kenyatta took over a government that had obligations, both local and international. In international obligations, he had to continue to service the dates that the government of President Kibaki had. Of course, with the continuation of assembling and making sure that the Constitution of 2010 works effectively, the president had to embark on a budget that could see cementing the rule of law through constitutionalism, making sure that all the institutions of the world that the world wants are working and work in Kenya. It is therefore very important to understand the root causes of the current taxation saga that continues to haunt and create cliffhanger politics into this nation. The 11th Parliament passed the budget. The 12th Parliament today found the budget and the tax levy had already been passed. For all these years, from 2013 to 2018, there are several oversight committees in Parliament, committees of finance, committees of budget, committees of all legal and other apparatus that work up in a democracy. Why did they look at this as very important taxation that had been shelved by the Minister of Finance? It is therefore very prudent and very important for the people of this country to understand, and the rest of the world to understand, that the international obligations and the factors that run around international agencies that lend in money, that support our programs in Africa, they come with conditions that you must fulfill before the sustenance of such grants or loans or whatever help they are giving to the nations in Africa. It is very important, therefore, to learn that behind all this, there is what we call cliffhanger politics. The politics that seeks to victimize. The politics that seeks to push a person to the wall. The politics that seeks to cause a state of despondence where the masses could turn against the president of republic of any country in Africa. These factors could be coming from both internal and external forces that are hidden, that would like to collapse the systems and replace the systems with their own likings. It is therefore very important for the people of Africa to watch out for such maneuvers, such Machiavellian systems of operation. Machiavellian in the sense that they planted the story, they orchestrate the script, they write the script, they tell, they engineer, they sit down and discuss the formula on how to weaken a government. One of the things disturbing Machiavellian politicians or cliffhanger politicians is what is it that it was in the handshake. It is this handshake that has pained even those who were moderate, who turn around to become hardliners. It is this handshake, the question of redemption, seeking redemption, that people are querying. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is inside it? The government therefore should move fast to make sure that they put it out in the 9-point program that we see, so that it is among the people that the terms of reference of all this is thrown to the people to make their own judgment. The second reason why cliffhanger politics works, or why people create cliffhanger politics, is to confuse the main item. What is the main item of Kenyans today? The main item of Kenyans is to fight corruption. Since President Uhuru Kenyatta declared that he will fight corruption through a lifestyle audit, there has been a sense of cliffhanger politics, direction of cliffhanging, of taking us to almost falling and then coming back. These are called diversionary tactics in political science. Tactics that take your enemy or your friend, or even tactics that can take a country into a bad direction, keep it there, bring it back, manipulate it, so that the main issue of corruption is not discussed. These are cardinal points that people must look at when you are fixing your mind on the current political, economic, social mechanisms that are operating on the state of Republic of Kenya. Like in Zimbabwe today, the cliffhanger politics has entered the same style of cliffhanger politics of Machiavellian. Boycott, don't come in later. Oppose, don't oppose, come in later. That is the way cliffhanger politics works. Any student of political science will know that those who seek to grab power through dubious means to cause despondency first go by causing a state of despondence by making sure that the masses hate the leadership. President Uhuru Kenyatta, as a shepherd, must strike the shepherd. As the owner of the sheep, must strike the shepherd once for all. Strike the shepherd, the sheep will scatter.